Today we will start chapter number 15, that is biodiversity and its conservation. Now biodiversity means diversity in living beings, that is different plants, organisms. So different varieties are present in a particular locality, particular area, and that is known as biodiversity. So here Edward Wilson had combined the diversity at different level, that means genetic level, species level, then ecological level. Now genetic diversity means when a single species had different varieties depending upon their genetic makeup, then it is known as genetic diversity. For example, about 50,000 varieties of rice is there in our country, India. Then about 1,000 varieties of mango species is there. Then Rauwolfia pometoria plant has different varieties which are present in different area of the Himalayan range. So these are known as the genetic diversity in a single species but different varieties of that particular plant or organism. Now the second is species diversity. That means at species level the diversity is present. More species are present in particular locality, then it will be known as species diversity rich. For example, in Western Ghat of our country, than Eastern Ghat, the diversity is rich. That means maximum number of species are present in Western Ghat, but less number of species are present in Eastern Ghat. Then it will be known as the species diversity. Now, ecological diversity. India has wide range of ecosystem depending upon its situation, location. Here we can get desert, then highly rainfall area, then wetland, alpine forest, mangroves, coral reefs, etc. So in this way, variety of ecosystem are present in our country. For example, in comparison to the Scandinavian country, that is Norway. So that's why, because wide range of ecosystem is there, so maximum type of varieties will be there, and our country is biodiversity rich. According to IUCN book in 2004 report is that about more than 1.5 million plant and animal species have been recorded yet, but many more are to be discovered and to be recorded. An estimate made by Robert May, according to him, about 70% animals and 22% plants are recorded, and their prokaryotes are not mentioned. And among the animals, about 70% of total animal is the insect group. That we'll discuss through the diagram also. Now, India has about 2.4% of the total land area of the world, whereas its diversity is about, species is about 8.4%, and that's why it is known as one of the mega diversity country among 12 mega diversity country of the world. About 45,000 plant species and more than at least twice of this number are animals from India have been recorded, and according to Robert May, till now only 22% of the species have been recorded yet, and many more, that means the 75%, more than 75% are to be discovered. So in this way we can see that for study of biodiversity, a lot is required to done in this area, and that's why this is the demand of this time to conserve our biodiversity so that the global warming and other issues can be maintained balanced.
There are three types of diversity, that is three levels of diversity, that is genetic level, then species level and ecosystem level. Genetic diversity means diversity of the genes within a single species, having different varieties of genes in the same species, that is genetic diversity. Then species diversity means how many types of different types of species present in an ecosystem, that is known as species diversity. Whereas ecosystem diversity means different types of habitat which are present in a given area, that is known as ecosystem diversity. So it means there are three types of diversity. The genetic diversity, that is existing within a species, and the variation in the alleles, total number of genes, chromosome structure, etc., all will be the part of this genetic diversity. The number of genes in the following we can see here, that is mycoplasma, that is 450 to 700, E. coli about 4000, Drosophila melanogaster, that is about 13,000, then Aerugea sativa, that is rice, that is about 32,000 to 50,000, then Homo sapiens about 35,000 to 45,000. In with this way we can see there are various type of genetic makeup in a single species which form this genetic diversity. This slide is showing the population density formula. Actually, the population density can be defined as the total number of individuals present per unit area, and this can be the formula is population density can be calculated by number of individuals present by divided by unit area. Here we can see through this bar diagram that among the vertebrates and invertebrates, the number of vertebrates is about 7, the plant and animal having about 70%, and among the invertebrates about 70% is insect, and in 30% others are there, that is other animal, crustacean, molluscas, etc. If we will see the distribution of this vertebrates, then we can see the maximum portion about less than 50% is fishes, then second one is the birds, then reptiles, and mammals and amphibians are almost similar. So, these are the distribution of different types of plant and organ, the ratio. Here the most one, the angiosperms are the biggest number, and fungi, and then lichens are very less, algae, then comes ferns, mosses, etc.
Now we'll discuss the patterns of biodiversity. Among that, first one is the latitudinal gradients. We know that the vegetation of the biodiversity is not uniform in each and every part of the earth. It is different in each and every part of the earth. So when we'll move from equator towards pole, we can see the decrease in biodiversity. That means number of species will be decreasing. Then that's why we can take two examples. We can see the bird species, the total number of bird species in Colombia, which is situated near equator, is about 1400, whereas New York is 41° north, having 105 species of birds. Greenland, situated at 71° north, having about 56 species of birds, whereas India, which is situated in tropical region and having about 1200 species of birds. So we can see when towards the tropical area, we can see that equator part, the number of species will be more, that means the biodiversity is rich than the temperate region. Now other example is our on the earth, Amazonian rainforest is the greatest biodiversity area, and it harbors about 40,000 species of plant, 3,000 species of fish, 1,300 bird species, then 427 species of mammals and amphibians each, then 378 reptiles, and more than 1,25,000 species of invertebrates, and at least about 2 millions of this insect species are waiting to be discovered, to be named. Now, the reason between that, among that, why tropical and temperate region are not same in their biodiversity, there are some reasons. The main reason is that in tropical area, that is the climate is, the season is, it is less seasonal, and the temperature and all the things are constant, rather than temperate region. Here the temperature, then the season is unpredictable. So this is one of the reason for that. And more solar energy is available in tropical area, that's why the productivity will be more, photosynthesis will be more, and that's why the number of species, that is biodiversity, will be rich, which is just opposite in temperate region. Now the speciation requires the time and frequent glaciation in parts past, and that's why they couldn't got this speciation process, because speciation requires some time and that was not given in temperate region, whereas in tropical area no such glaciations were there, and that's why the speciation occurs and the biodiversity is rich in that area. So these are some reason which explain about why the biodiversity is rich in tropical region in compared to the temperate region. Now the second pattern of biodiversity is that species area relationship. According to Alexander von Humboldt, species richness increases when we are exploring maximum area. So when the explored area is increasing, the species richness will also increase, but up to a certain limit in that particular region. And when we'll see it at the logarithmic scale, then it will appear as a rectangular hyperbola that we'll discuss through the slide also, and it will the relationship will show by a straight line. The value will be log s is equal to log c plus z log a, where the value of z will be lies between the range 0.1 to 0.2. It will not depend upon the type of taxonomic group or the particular reason. It will be almost in between this range only. Now the importance of species diversity. Why species diversity is important for our ecosystem? The first one is when the community has more species, then it will be more stable. In the case of any alien species invasion or any epidemic, that disease, pathogen, etc., some of the species will be disease resistant. In this way, they will be more stable. They can survive in adverse condition. Second one is that it is necessary for the survival of balancing the environmental condition as well as for the survival of human race. So in this way we can see that these species diversity is important for our ecosystem.
In this slide we can see the species area relationship. That means when according to this, when the explored area will be increasing, the amount of the population density will also increasing, but up to a certain limit. So when we will plot a graph, that is species richness and area, then we can see that the population is increasing and after that it will get declining or become stable. This line is showing by log s is equal to log c plus z log a, where s is denoting the species richness, a for area, and z is showing the slope of the line known as regression coefficient, and c is equal to y intercept. Here this showing the species area relationship, that means how it is increasing when it becomes declining or becomes stable. This slide is showing the biogeographic patterns, that is latitudinal gradient. According to this hypothesis, the number of species is greatest in which particular area, or it is decreasing towards which area, that is the latitudinal gradient. Now near the equator the number of species will be more, whereas when we will move towards the poles, then it will get decreasing. In the same way, when we are in the plain area, then the population is more, and when we are moving towards the tip of the mountain, then it will be decreasing. So environmental stability, climatic hypothesis, annual climate in tropics is more stable than the temperate or polar climates, that we have already discussed during the slides. Then constant climate is found in the tropical region. That's why the number of that biodiversity is rich, whereas in temperate region the climate, the season is frequently changing, and that's why it is the biodiversity is not so rich. The tropical species, the number of broods per year, potential for evolutionary change, the rate of speciation, all will be more during the towards this tropical area in comparison to the temperate or polar climates.
We'll start the topic loss of biodiversity. So, loss of diversity, there are some cause of loss, then that's why we need some conservation process to conserve our biodiversity. According to IUCN Red Book 2004, documents that about 784 species became extinct, which includes about 338 vertebrates, 359 invertebrates, 87 species of plants, and some are being extinct and some are vulnerable, so that these require the process of this conservation. Now, due to the loss of biodiversity, it leads to a decline in productivity that will hamper the total whole cycle on this earth. Then it also results in lowering of resistance power towards any type of any epidemic or any such type of natural uh, disease. Now, this cause of loss of biodiversity are there are four causes. First is the habitat loss and fragmentation. Second one is over exploitation, then alien species invasion and co-extinction. Now, habitat loss and fragmentation. Earlier, about 14% of the earth was covered with the vegetation, which became declined, and now it will about 6% of the total world global income. Now, we can see that this much it has been decreased. That's why the habitat of different type of organisms as well as plants becomes very less, and they are in small fragments. Due to that, very big number of organisms and plants became extinct or they are facing extinction. For example, that means afforestation for different purposes. Then example is migratory birds. We can see there is a highly decline in the migratory birds which are coming from different far areas to they are coming to different countries, tropical countries during the winter season. Then second topic is over exploitation. Over exploitation for urbanization, for food, shelter, etc. That's why they are exploiting the different our biodiversity and that afforestation and other things, and that's why it results in the loss of biodiversity. Then third one is alien species invasion. That means the species which are coming from other places, they are not native to that place, and then when some of the species are the reason for loss of biodiversity. For example, lantana, iconia, etc. are the plants which are coming from different countries and they are invading our own the native biodiversity. That means the species which are present in that place, that is the native place, they became extinct due to the alien species, and that's why it is known as alien species invasion. One more example is Nile perch, which when it is introduced in the Lake Victoria, about more than 200 species of eaten fish became extinct. So this is one of the example of the alien species invasion that results in loss of biodiversity. Then co-extinction. That means when the two organisms are related with each other by different type of interaction or relationship, then both of them get extinct, then it is known as co-extinction. For example, plant pollinator. That means some of the insects are necessary for the pollinating of the particular plant. So there is a relationship between these two, that is plant pollinator. When the insect or that particular organism became extinct, then the plant will also become extinct. So in this way, this is one of the example of co-extinction. Other example is parasite and host relationship. If the parasite is obligatory, then when the host will disappear or extinct, then the parasite will also become extinct. So these are the four causes of loss of biodiversity. Now, need of biodiversity. That means why biodiversity is required to be conserved. There are three types of need, mainly two types of utility. That is narrowly utilitarian, then broadly utilitarian. Now, the narrowly utilitarian means when we are getting the direct economic benefit from the biodiversity, that is known as narrowly utilitarian. For example, we are getting different types of drugs, medicine, food, then timber, fuel, resins, etc. The byproduct of the forest or that area, but it is giving direct benefit to us, that is known as narrowly utilitarian type of use. Then next one is the broadly utilitarian. That means, for example, Amazon forest estimated about total out of total oxygen production, about 20% of the oxygen production occurs through this forest by the process of photosynthesis. Then that means our forest or this biodiversity balance the rainfall, it balances the water cycle, regulates the water cycle in a proper way, then it prevents flood, then these are also used for aesthetic purpose. So in this way we can see these are also the different type of giving utility, but of different type, that's known as broadly utilitarian. An ethical argument is also there, that means every species had its intrinsic value and that should be conserved, and we have a moral duty the past to pass our biological legacy to our future generation. So in this way biodiversity is required to be conserved. Now we'll discuss about how the conservation process occurs.
This is the IUCN Red Book, in which it is given that which species is going to be endangered, which is already being extinct. So all these things, all these informations are given in this book, and they are that we can see here. The extinct is for EX, EX is the symbol, then extinct in wild, that is symbol is EW, then RE means regionally extinct, then threatened categories are given like this: vulnerable, UV, EN symbol for endangered, then critically endangered CR, then near threatened NT, least concern LC, data deficient DD, not applicable NA, not evaluated NA. So in this way different symbols are given, and in the book it is written there, so that according to this book, by with the help of this book, the threatened categories of animals can be taken care of, so that they can be preserved, they can be conserved. What are the need for the conserve of biodiversity? Because all these biodiversity, that means including plants and animals, are helping us in different ways, and their utility is divided into three categories, that is the narrowly utilitarian, that means all the types of economic beneficial things like food, firewood, fiber, construction material, industrial products like tannin, lubricants, dyes, perfumes, rubber, as well as different types of medicines, all we are getting from the forest or the biodiversity, is known as narrowly utilitarian. The second category is broadly utilitarian, in which that different types of ecosystem services like oxygen, then different prevention of flood, prevention of soil erosion, then maintaining the water cycle, then pollinators which are helping in the process of pollination, then stable ecosystem, all these things will come under the category that is broadly utilitarian. Then it also includes the aesthetic pleasure of like walking through the wood, or watching the spring flowers, or listening the song of the different types of birds. So all these are the aesthetic pleasures, which is also will come under the ecosystem services, that is broadly utilitarian. Then ethical argument is that for conserving the biodiversity, it is our moral duty to pass the biological legacy to our future generation, as well as we have to conserve millions of plants, animals, microbes, etc., to balance our ecosystem also. There are some main idea to conserve our biodiversity. The main objectives are to describe two classes of natural resources, then to identify them, to explain different techniques to restore the biodiversity. Then the biodiversity can be stored or preserved or conserved by two main methods, that is in situ as well as ex situ. Now in situ, which occurs in the habitat only, that it keep the species in their natural habitat. The advantages of this method is that species and its habitat are conserved, both are conserved, and often larger population can be conserved. Then the greater chance of population will be for increasing. But disadvantage is there that it is difficult to control poaching, predators, effect of climate change, disease, etc.
To save our planet, conservation is required. So, for conserving the biodiversity, there are two main important approaches. First is in situ conservation, that is on-site conservation, and other one is ex situ conservation or off-site conservation. Now, in situ conservation, the number of hot spots were identified at global level. That was about 25 earlier, but it is now increased to 34 hot spots are there at global or world level. In India, the main important hot spots are Western Ghat, Sri Lanka, then Indo-Burma Himalayan range. And these are biodiversity rich regions which are required protection, and for that various means are required. Like in our country, these methods are utilized to conserve, that is in situ conservation, that means on site the plant, organism, forest, all are to be conserved, and they are made into different. First is 14 biosphere reserves, then 90 national parks, 448 wildlife sanctuaries, then sacred groves at various places like Khasi and Jaintia in Meghalaya region, then Aravali in Rajasthan, then Western Ghat in Karnataka and Maharashtra, then Sarguja, Chanda and Bastar in MP region. So these are the sacred groves. These are related with the religious beliefs and they have been protected. So in this way, these are some methods to protect, to conserve our biodiversity through in situ conservation. Now ex situ conservation, that is off-site conservation, here it is taken from the natural habitat and they are specially given care as well as protection from outside by making zoological parks, botanical garden, wildlife safari parks, etc. In vitro conservation is also nowadays in use, that is tissue culture, making a sperm bank, making seed bank, etc. These are also the method for the conservation of biodiversity, but from outside. That's why it is known as ex situ conservation. Now, this actually the conservation at global level is not within the boundary of any country. So it is the matter of all the nations of this world, and for that some collective effort by different nations have been given. And the Earth Summit was held in 1992 in Rio de Janeiro, and the World Summit occurred on Sustainable Development during 2002 in Johannesburg, South Africa. About 190 countries pledged commitment to achieve the goal by 2010. Now, the goal of this summit were conservation of biodiversity, then sustainable utilization of the product of that biodiversity, as well as reduction in the current rate of biodiversity loss at local level, then regional level, as well as global level. So in this way, different methods of this conservation, that is in situ and ex situ, to conserve our biodiversity, and that is necessary for saving our planet, to saving our mankind.
The in situ and ex situ conservation, in situ in the particular place, natural habitat, only the organisms biodiversity is conserved, whereas in ex situ it is outside that place. That means, for example, different types of biological garden, zoological parks, etc. and this in situ conservation helps the population to preserve them in the natural habitat and their surrounding only, like for example national parks, biosphere reserves, wildlife sanctuaries, etc. Now, the nature reserves, that is species is conserved in its natural habitat, or it may be terrestrial or marine. Advantages, these are the advantages and these are the disadvantages. Among advantages, the species remain adapted to their habitat, then greater genetic diversity can be conserved by this method, their natural behavior patterns can be maintained, and their interaction between species help whole ecosystem. That means these are the advantages of the preservation of the organism in their natural habitat. Now, the disadvantages are that may not be safe to leave very rare species in the wild, or habitat loss will force in the removal of the threatened species. So, that means when we are conserving them in the ex situ measures, then these disadvantage may be there. These are some important points of biodiversity, that means why it is important for our nature. Living things are interdependent, that means both of them are influencing each other, interacting with each other. Living things, or that is biotic, among the biotic factors or among the biotic as well as abiotic factors. The populations are adapted to live together in the communities, and biodiversity can bring stability to an ecosystem. That is why we have to preserve the biodiversity. Then importance of biodiversity to the people, how they are helpful for the people. That means the biodiversity could help breeders to produce additional food crops. They can be also used in improving the population, people's health, since living things supply the world pharmacy. So, these are the source of the medicines. Then humans depend on other organisms for their needs, different types of plant species or animal species. So, in this way they are very important for the people also. The ecosystem approach, that is CBD, the ecosystem approach is a strategy for integrated management of land, water, living resources, etc., and which helps in the conservation as well as the sustainable use in a proper way, and that can be also preserved for the coming generation, future generation. This slide is showing different types of biodiversity conservation method. Here we can see there are two methods, that is in situ as well as ex situ. In situ includes the protected areas like national park, biosphere reserve, sanctuary. Then biosphere reserves can be divided into two, that is terrestrial as well as marine, whereas ex situ can be divided in various methods, like by making seed bank, cryopreservation, field gene bank, then sacred plant, home garden, then arboreta, then botanical garden, zoological park, aquaria, etc. So, these are different methods of biodiversity conservation. Then interface between the people and sacred groves, due to the religious method, or the political reason, or socio-cultural or economic. For these methods purposes, the sacred groves are preserved by different types of people, that is local people which are living in that particular area. For conserving different our earth planet, different times the at the global level, world level, some summit meetings were arranged, and the first one was Rio de Janeiro Earth Summit, held in 1992, and it was for the main theme was that the sustainable development of the environment. Then the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, that is UNFCCC, it was a treaty first adopted during the summit, then formally enacted in 1994. Other accomplishments were Agenda 21, that is Rio Declaration on Environment and Development, a Statement of Forest Principles, UN Convention on Biological Diversity, UN Convention to Combat Desertification. So, all these were done to preserve our biodiversity, to conserve our biodiversity, as well as sustainable use of the resources.